Here's the first section of your story, expanding on the outlined concepts with strong character dynamics, world building, and a sense of intrigue. Section 1. First Contact. A misunderstanding of strength. The Galactic Council had finally deemed humanity worthy of contact. For centuries, they had observed Earth from afar, waiting for the right moment to extend their offer of inclusion into the grand assembly of spacefaring civilizations. The Zarnak Imperium, the most esteemed military force within the Council, was selected to be the first to interact with humans. It was a logical choice. The Zarnak prided themselves on their methodical approach to war, their ability to calculate odds down to decimal perfection, and their mastery of precision-based weaponry. Surely, they would impress these upstart primates and swiftly integrate them into the galactic order. Admiral Helena Carter was not easily impressed. Sitting at the head of a polished, steel-gray table in the UN Space Command's secure diplomatic chamber, she regarded the Zarnak delegation with cool interest. The lead envoy, a tall, slender being with angular silver features, introduced himself as High Strategos Viral Core, a title that carried great weight among his kind. He spoke with a measured cadence, his voice metallic and clipped. "Humans, your rapid technological progress has not gone unnoticed," Viral Core stated, his eyes scanning the human officials with something bordering on mild condescension. "The Council has assessed your capabilities and determined that, while you have achieved moderate advancements, you are not yet a threat to the balance of power." Carter raised an eyebrow. That was an interesting way to start a diplomatic conversation. "A threat?" she echoed, leaning back in her chair. "I wasn't aware we were being assessed for hostility." Viral Core's eyes flickered. "All species are evaluated before entry into the Council. It is our duty to maintain galactic stability. Your kind's aggressive tendencies are notable." There was a beat of silence before Secretary General Anders, the political representative of Earth, cleared his throat. "We are honored that the Council has finally decided to engage with us. We are, however, very curious about the criteria used to determine our technological status." Viral Core's lips curled slightly. A reasonable request. The Council judges military advancement based on strategic efficiency, energy output, and technological refinement. Our ships, for instance, are equipped with molecular disintegration beams, capable of reducing enemy fleets to subatomic dust in precise, calculated strikes. This is the standard of civilized warfare. Carter exchanged glances with Rear Admiral Vasquez, one of the key commanders of Earth's defense fleet. He looked unimpressed. She turned back to the Zarnak with a neutral expression. "Fascinating technology. I take it you don't use kinetic weaponry." Viral Core tilted his head slightly, as though the question was almost laughable. "Kinetic-based warfare is primitive. It lacks elegance. We have long since evolved past the need for brute force." That was when one of the junior officers, a weapons specialist named Lieutenant Harris, leaned toward Vasquez and muttered under his breath, "That's cute. Our railguns would punch right through their hulls." Unfortunately, the Zarnak envoy heard him. A hush fell over the room as Viral Core's expression darkened. "Excuse me," he asked coldly. Carter sighed inwardly, but chose not to backpedal. She folded her hands together and met Viral Core's gaze evenly. "What Lieutenant Harris means is that we use a variety of weapons suited for different combat situations. Our railguns, for example, accelerate metal slugs at relativistic speeds. The impact alone can pulverize through multiple layers of shielding and hull plating. It's simple, direct, and highly effective." Viral Core narrowed his eyes. "A crude and wasteful methodology." "It works," Carter countered. The Zarnak envoy exhaled sharply, clearly irritated. "I find this difficult to believe. Perhaps a demonstration is in order." Vasquez grinned, unable to help himself. "Are you challenging us to a war game?" Viral Core straightened. "A controlled engagement, yes. We will demonstrate the superiority of refined combat doctrine, and in turn, you will show us this brute force methodology you seem so proud of. Let us see if your kinetic weapons are truly as formidable as you claim." Carter exchanged a glance with Anders, who hesitated for a brief moment before nodding. The decision was made. Very well, Carter said. We accept your challenge. Viral Core gave a curt nod. We will convene in one solar cycle. Prepare yourselves, humans. The Council shall bear witness to your capabilities. As the Zarnak delegation departed, Vasquez let out a low whistle. They have no idea what they just signed up for. Carter smirked. No, they don't. But they're about to find out. This section sets up the core conflict with tension, arrogance from the aliens, and hints of the overkill to come. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. Rocket. #### Section 2. The Mock Battle. Humanity's excessive firepower. The uninhabited moon Varos. 3 sat in the void like a barren, cratered wasteland, chosen as the battlefield for what was meant to be a controlled demonstration. The Galactic Council had dispatched observers, high-ranking officials from several interstellar species, all eager to witness what they assumed would be a routine exhibition of superiority from the Zarnak Imperium. The Council had always held the Zarnak in high regard as a pinnacle of military precision, and the idea that a relatively young species like humanity could compete was borderline absurd. For their part, the Zarnak fleet arrived first, deploying in a tight formation. Their ships gleamed under the distant starlight, sleek constructs of silver and blue energy fields. They carried plasma lances and disintegration beams, weapons that could erase matter at a molecular level with pinpoint accuracy. The Zarnak saw war as an art of efficiency, of controlled destruction, of exact calculations leading to optimal results. Then the human fleet arrived, and the tone of the battle shifted immediately. Even before the first shot was fired, something about Earth's warships unsettled the Council observers. Unlike the smooth, elegant Zarnak vessels, the human ships were hulking behemoths, massive slabs of reinforced titanium plating, bristling with railguns, missile silos, and kinetic bombardment platforms. The centerpiece of the fleet was the USS Titan, a battleship so large it dwarfed even the Zarnak's flagship. The Council murmured amongst themselves. Some of the more refined species found the human fleet crude, unrefined, even barbaric. Others, particularly those from warrior cultures, watched with interest. On the Titan's bridge, Admiral Helena Carter stood at the command console, arms crossed as she observed the Zarnak fleet forming into standard attack patterns. They would likely try to pick off key targets with surgical strikes, expecting a battle of maneuverability and precision. Viral Core's voice came through the communication channel. Your fleet is formidable in size, but it is inefficient. Shall we begin? Carter smirked. By all means. The mock battle commenced. The Zarnak moved first. Their ships opened fire with disintegration beams, lances of brilliant white energy streaking across the void. The beams sliced effortlessly through space, targeting key structural weak points on the human fleet. One of the smaller Earth frigates took a direct hit. Its outer armor melted away instantly, leaving it vulnerable. But then the human fleet responded, and that was when the battle took a terrifying turn. The USS Titan fired its main railgun. A single hypervelocity slug, accelerated to a fraction of the speed of light, tore through the void. The slug hit a Zarnak destroyer midsection, and then continued through it, exiting the other side as if the ship was made of paper. The destroyer shuddered violently before its structure collapsed in on itself, splitting into 2 drifting halves. Silence. Viral Core's composure faltered for the first time. He had expected the human fleet to use energy weapons or some form of guided munitions. Not a single solid projectile moving at relativistic speeds. What was that? He demanded. Carter's voice remained calm, almost casual. That was a railgun. Just one of our standard ship-to-ship weapons. Another round was fired, this time from a smaller human cruiser. The slug ripped straight through a Zarnak corvette, causing a shockwave inside its hull that blew the ship apart from within. Then came the missiles. The human fleet unleashed a swarm of warheads, thousands of them, each equipped with adaptive targeting systems. The Zarnak's defensive countermeasures managed to shoot down a few, but there were simply too many. The rest impacted like a meteor storm, sending explosions rippling across their formations. And that was before the humans deployed orbital kinetic bombardment. From the Titan, a payload of tungsten rods was launched at the surface of Varos 3. These were rods from God, massive, unpowered projectiles that relied purely on gravitational acceleration. They struck the moon's surface with the force of nuclear detonations, sending up towering plumes of dust and debris. The entire battlefield shook as the impact reverberated across space. The Zarnak fleet began breaking formation, not in strategic retreat, but in panic. Their calculations had failed them. Their shields, designed to block energy-based weapons, were useless against physical projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. Their elegant battle formations meant nothing when the human fleet could simply saturate the battlefield with overwhelming firepower. Viralkor's voice was no longer calm. It was edged with something rare for the Zarnak. Fear. This is not a controlled engagement. This is brutality. Carter, watching the wreckage of half the Zarnak fleet drifting lifelessly, smiled coldly. Oh, I'm sorry, strategos. Did you think we were here to play? At that moment, the Council observers began to understand something deeply unsettling about humanity. They had mistaken Earth's lack of energy weapons for technological inferiority. They had assumed that humans fought with barbaric, outdated methods. What they had failed to consider was that humanity had not abandoned kinetic and nuclear warfare due to technological limitation. They had kept it because it worked. The mock battle ended prematurely as the Zarnak forces, battered and humiliated, signaled immediate surrender. The humans had not only won, they had demonstrated such overwhelming force that no further resistance was even considered. As the Zarnak fleet retreated from the battlefield, Viralkor stared at the Titan in stunned silence. Carter, now standing at the bridge viewport, watched them go with a satisfied smirk. She turned to Vasquez and the other officers. Well, she said dryly, I think we made our point. The Galactic Council had thought this battle would be a simple demonstration. Instead, they had just learned what humanity called overkill. This section escalates tension, showcases humanity's overwhelming firepower, and sets up the consequences for the next part. Let me know if you'd like any modifications. Rocket. #### Section 3. The Council's Horror. Humanity's Barbaric Warfare. The Galactic Council's Grand Assembly Hall was a marvel of engineering, a vast chamber suspended within the artificial gravity of the Council's prime station, Zenith Spire. Here, representatives from over 100 civilizations gathered beneath an enormous, transparent dome that provided a breathtaking view of the stars. Today, however, no one was admiring the cosmos. The room was tense, filled with hushed murmurs and flickering bioluminescent displays showing replays of the so-called mock battle. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. The Zarnak Imperium, one of the most militarily advanced species in the Council, had not just been defeated, they had been humiliated. The footage played on loop across holographic projectors, showing the Titan's railgun round slicing through a Zarnak destroyer like paper. The kinetic bombardment scarred the surface of Varos 3, leaving impact craters so deep they altered the moon's gravity. The assembled delegates were visibly disturbed. Some of the more pacifist species whispered to each other in alarm. The Droll theocracy, a species of insectoid mystics, clicked their mandibles in horror. Even the hulking warlords of the Jorvash clans, a species that had once prided themselves on their brutal ground wars, shifted uncomfortably. At the center of it all, Admiral Helena Carter stood unshaken, her uniform immaculate, her expression unreadable. Beside her, Secretary General Anders, the political representative for Earth, projected an air of diplomatic patience. Across the chamber, Strategos Viralkor stood in stiff silence, his silver features paler than usual. He had barely spoken since his return from the battle. His forces, once thought undefeatable, had been rendered obsolete in the span of a single engagement. The Zarnak were a people of calculations, and this result had not been within their mathematical models. A voice finally broke the silence. This is unacceptable. The speaker was High Chancellor Valen of the Korathi Dominion, a reptilian humanoid draped in flowing ceremonial robes. His emerald green scales darkened with agitation as he pointed a clawed finger at the humans. We invited your kind into this council with the assumption that you were civilized. What you have demonstrated is wanton destruction. Carter arched an eyebrow. You invited us into this council because you feared what we might become if left unchecked. She folded her arms. Now you know. The murmurs grew louder. The truth in her words was undeniable. Humanity had not been brought in as equals. They had been monitored.
Judged.
And now that judgment had backfired spectacularly. Another delegate, a pale, blue-skinned being from the Veroan Enclave, turned toward Anders, his voice calm but cold. Your people fought without precision. There was no strategic restraint. You overcommit everything for what? A display of power? A warning? Carter gave a slow, deliberate nod. Yes. The room fell into stunned silence. Viralkor finally spoke, his voice low. That level of force was not necessary for a simulated engagement. Carter met his gaze evenly. If it were a real engagement, we would have used more. A shudder rippled through the gathered delegates. Valen's tail lashed behind him. More? What more could you possibly? Anders, up until now maintaining a careful diplomatic demeanor, leaned forward. That was conventional warfare, Chancellor, he said smoothly. We haven't even touched orbital fusion strikes, singularity warheads, or AI-guided nanite swarms. I'm sure you don't want to see what that looks like. For the first time in the Council's history, a silence of pure dread filled the chamber. The implication was clear. Humanity had only shown a fraction of its capabilities. The Korathi Chancellor's expression tightened. You speak as if war is inevitable. Carter smiled faintly. It always is. The difference is we fight to win. We don't fight twice. Viralkor clenched his fists. You call that fighting? There was no elegance, no calculated destruction. You pounded us into dust. Carter's smile faded. You mistake efficiency for elegance. When we fight, we do so with one goal: end it as quickly as possible. We don't leave room for counterattacks. We don't give enemies a chance to regroup. If we go to war, it's because there's no other choice. The Droll Theocracy's ambassador, a towering, mantis-like being, clicked its mandibles. Asterisk, asterisk, and yet, with such destructive power, you claim to be peaceful? Asterisk, asterisk. Anders spread his hands. We are. The fact that we have that power and have not used it against you should be proof enough. A slow realization began to dawn upon the room. The humans were not conquerors. They were deterrents. They did not seek galactic domination, they sought to be left alone. But the unspoken threat lingered. If forced to fight, humanity would not hold back. The debate continued for hours, shifting between fear, anger, and reluctant acceptance. The Council had spent centuries maintaining a carefully balanced galactic order. And now, humanity had thrown that balance into question. And then, just as the argument began to reach a boiling point, an emergency distress signal interrupted the proceedings. A deep, guttural voice boomed through the chamber, projected from an incoming transmission. This is Warlord Korgothvar, Supreme Commander of the Korgoth Dominion. We have watched your council squabble like frightened children. Now we see a worthy opponent. A murmur of dread and recognition swept through the room. The Korgoth Dominion, a species of war-hardened conquerors feared across the stars. Their fleets had devastated entire empires. Their warriors lived for conflict and bloodshed. And now they had taken notice of humanity. The transmission continued. We care nothing for your politics. But you humans, Korgothvar's voice rumbled with amusement. You fight well. You fight as we do. A pause. Then a low, predatory chuckle. So now we shall see if you can fight against us. The signal cut out. The chamber remained deathly silent until Viralkor slowly turned to face Carter. His voice was barely above a whisper. What have you done? Carter exhaled, watching the static fade from the display. We just got their attention. And this time, it wouldn't be a mock battle. It would be war. This section escalates the political tension, highlights the Council's horror at humanity's warfare doctrine, and introduces the real threat, the Korgoth. Let me know if you want any refinements. Rocket. Section 4. The Unleashing. What humans call overkill. The weight of silence hung in the Galactic Council chamber long after the Korgoth Dominion's transmission had ended. For many species, the name Korgoth was synonymous with extinction. The Dominion did not conquer planets, they scorched them. They did not enslave civilizations, they eradicated them. Countless empires had crumbled under their relentless war machine. Now that machine was turning toward humanity. Admiral Helena Carter and Secretary General Anders exchanged a glance. They had both anticipated that humanity's display of force would have consequences, but even they hadn't expected the Korgoth to be so eager. Stratego's Viral Core's voice was tight, controlled, but there was no mistaking the sheer unease beneath it. Do you understand what you have done? The Korgoth only seek battle when they deem a foe worthy. Carter exhaled, her tone unreadable. Then I suppose it's an honor. The Zarnak general's silver eyes narrowed. This is no joke, Admiral. If the Korgoth launch a full-scale invasion, none of us will survive. Even our most advanced fleets have barely repelled their raids. He turned to the rest of the Council. We must act now. Every fleet in the Galactic Alliance must be mobilized before. A new transmission cut through the discussion. A cold, calculated voice from one of the Galactic Alliance's border outposts. This is Fortress Station A-99, Outer Defense Perimeter. We have detected Korgoth war fleets exiting slipspace at multiple coordinates. Estimated 70 dreadnoughts, hundreds of escort ships. They are not stopping. The room descended into chaos. Even the most hardened war veterans among the Council delegates looked shaken. They knew what those numbers meant. Even if every fleet in the Council's jurisdiction mobilized immediately, they wouldn't be fast enough to prevent the Korgoth from wiping out entire colonies. The Galactic Council had fought the Korgoth before, and barely survived. Now humanity would face them alone. Anders took a slow breath, then turned to Carter. Admiral? Carter tapped her earpiece. Command, confirm status. A moment of static. Then, a calm, controlled voice came through. This is Fleet Command. We have detected the Korgoth incursion. They are en route to Proxima Centauri's defense line. First wave will reach us in 6 hours. Anders turned back to the Council. We will handle this. Viral Core stared at him. You what? Carter smiled. But it wasn't a smile of bravado or arrogance. It was something colder. We'll handle this. #the Battle of Proxima Centauri. 6 hours later, the Korgoth Armada arrived at the edge of human-occupied space. They expected resistance. They did not expect what they found. Unlike the Zarnak's fleets, which had focused on precision warfare, the humans had no illusions of elegance. There were no graceful formations, no tactical dance of energy weapons. Instead, the largest fleet ever assembled by humanity waited in absolute silence, their ships dark against the void. The USS Titan sat at the heart of the formation, its hull reinforced with layered composite plating designed to withstand direct thermonuclear strikes. Surrounding it were super dreadnoughts, each bristling with rotational railgun batteries, their slugs capable of punching through planets, let alone ships. Then there were the bombardment platforms, massive satellites loaded with kinetic payloads, positioned above every single likely point of engagement. Humanity did not fight wars of attrition. They fought wars of annihilation. The Korgoth hailed them. This is Korgothvar. The warlord's voice growled over the comms. We have come to see if you are truly worthy prey. Carter stood on the bridge, arms folded. Prey, she repeated. She turned to her comm officer. Send him the battle footage from Varos 3. The transmission was sent. The Korgoth warlord watched in silence as he saw the Zarnak fleet, one of the most feared forces in the galaxy, torn apart within minutes. When the footage ended, he laughed. Good, he rumbled. Then we do not need to hold back. Carter's eyes narrowed. Neither do we. The Battle of Proxima Centauri began. The Korgoth war fleet advanced, their ships designed for brutal close-quarters combat. Their war doctrine relied on boarding enemy vessels, on tearing through defenses with overwhelming force. It had worked for centuries. But this was not a war the humans intended to let drag out. The moment the Korgoth ships crossed the engagement threshold, the Titan's main railgun fired. The slug traveled at a fraction of the speed of light. It did not stop. The lead Korgoth dreadnought, twice the size of the Titan, shattered instantly, the sheer kinetic energy ripping through its core like it was made of glass. Debris exploded outward, colliding with several escort ships and sending them tumbling out of formation. Then, the bombardment platforms activated. Tungsten rods, each the size of skyscrapers, rained from orbit. The Korgoth ships, designed for energy shielding, were helpless against solid metal traveling at planetary impact speeds. The battlefield turned into a storm of destruction, entire capital ships torn apart before they could even react. The Korgoth tried to close the distance, to engage in their traditional brutal melee tactics. They never got the chance. Human AI-controlled autonomous drone swarms flooded the battlefield. They moved in perfect coordination, dodging enemy fire and delivering pinpoint railgun strikes to critical systems. By the time the Korgoth realized they had underestimated their enemy, it was too late. The battle lasted 40 minutes. At the end of it, the Korgoth fleet was gone. Not defeated. Not crippled.
Gone.
Of the 70 dreadnoughts that had arrived, only 3 remained operational. They did not attempt to flee. They simply stopped. A transmission came through. Korgoth-Var's face filled the Titan's bridge display. But there was no rage. No hatred. Only understanding. "You do not fight like prey," he said quietly. Carter leaned forward, her gaze cold.
"No.
"We don't." A long silence. Then, Korgoth-Var nodded once. "You are warriors," he said simply. "And warriors do not waste time on lesser foes." Then the transmission cut off, and the 3 remaining Korgoth ships turned and vanished into slipspace. The war was over before it had even begun. #Aftermath. What they call overkill. The Galactic Council received word of the battle hours later. The shock was absolute. The Korgoth had never been beaten like this before. Viral Kor, upon reading the report, simply sank into his seat. He had feared humanity's strength, but now he realized his greatest fear had been misplaced.